Recently, in a conversation that didn't actually take place, somebody who doesn't exist asked me this question. They said, "What is your daily driver cassette Walkman?" I thought, that's a good question. Glad you've asked it. I can make a video about that, and that's why we're here. So, by the term daily driver, just in case you're unfamiliar, of course it's to do with automobiles, cars, but really I'm using it in a Walkman sense here because, say, for example, you had a garage full of exotic vehicles that you collected over the years that were worth a fortune, all sorts of different models. You might have a daily driver that you just use to go down the shops, and it probably won't be your best vehicle because it might not be practical, it might cost too much, you might not want to risk it, that kind of thing. Same with cassette Walkman. You might have a few models that you cherish, but perhaps they're not the one that you're just going to shove in a pocket to listen to a cassette outside the house, if that's something anyone ever did. So, with that in mind, my best cassette Walkman is this Sony WM-D6C. It's a professional model. It was designed for reporters and people to gather recordings out in the field, for which it was a very competent machine, and it's a great machine for listening to music as well, other than the fact it's a big old heavy chunk of a thing, and it takes 4 AA batteries and it eats through them pretty quickly. For its function that it was designed for, great, but really just for listening to music on the go, kind of overkill to be carrying this thing around, and yeah, would take up a lot of space in your pocket. So yeah, I'll keep this one in the house, even though I really like it. Now, I did a video about different Walkman models, and if you saw that, you'll know that at the time I suggested that my favourites were these 20th anniversary series of Walkman. I got a couple of these. One was like a spare, and this was the one that I was using most of the time. Small, lightweight, metal body, auto reverse, blank skip, mega bass, all that kind of stuff, soft touch controls, inline remote control. Lovely little thing. And yeah, great. This is what I'd use most of the time. Just perfect little thing, stick in your pocket, listen to some cassettes. The only issue with these is that they run on these gumstick batteries, and they're a bit of a pain in the neck. If you don't use one of these for a while, which is more than likely, and then you pick it up, you find the battery's flat. And then these things take an age to charge. It's not like a mobile phone nowadays. You've got to stick these in a separate charger, leave them for hours and hours. So then you'd have to have like a few of these batteries on the go, some ready charge, some that you have to charge a lot. After a while, these things kind of ruin this experience. So today I'm going to show you what my current daily driver cassette Walkman is, and I'm also going to show you what I'm going to change it for. So let's have a look. Now, of course, I'm well aware that I don't have to power this thing from one of these gumstick batteries. That just provides the neatest solution. But if that battery is flat, well, it's just a matter of screwing one of these battery adapters to the bottom, and that will power the whole thing from a single AA. And that AA, apparently according to the specs, will provide it with enough power to play for 39 hours. Very efficient devices, these. The gumstick battery, well, that's around about 12 hours. So really, if you wanted to use this thing on the go, you might as well sort of forget those in a way for the amount of hassle they are to charge and just run it all off a AA. But if that was the answer I was going to give you in this video, just run your Walkman off a AA, well, it wouldn't be a very interesting video. And also, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think the aesthetics are kind of ruined with that. Wouldn't it be a nice idea if they just made these a tiny bit bigger, perhaps long enough even, just to fit the AA inside, so you don't have to screw this battery adapter on the bottom that just kind of ruins the whole thing? Well, funny you should say that, because that's the device that I want to show you. So let's have a look at what I've classed as my daily driver cassette Walkman. Right, you ready? Here it is. Now this one has a single AA battery powering it again, but internally. No need for the plastic chin on the bottom of here. And yet, it looks the same size. Well, it does from this angle. Let's just tip it over. Yeah, you can see now where they've put that AA battery. So we've got a bulge to one side of this, but I don't think it's in any way offensive. And in fact, it just seems to be a sleeker package all round. It's nicely rounded. And this thing with a plastic bit on the bottom, which doesn't match the rest of the case. I always feel like those are going to get snapped off somehow, whereas that is a self-contained unit with a AA battery in, and the features are very similar on here. So let's just go through them. Okay, so it's got auto reverse, which of course plays both sides of the tape. You can select the other side manually once it's playing by pressing the play button again. We've got an automatic blank skip function, and that's handy if you've got a pre-recorded album and the end of side A has quite a bit of silence on it. Rather than having to listen through that, it will skip past it and then it will get to the end of the tape, auto reverse and play side B. It minimises the gap between the audio finishing and the next side starting. Also, we've got the ability to skip forward and back through the tracks. They call that automatic music sensor. And then as far as the sound goes, we've got mega bass and groove. Groove is an even more bassy one really than mega bass. However, one thing it is missing is any Dolby noise reduction. On the other device that I have here, this has a Dolby B facility, and you can see the noise reduction sign there. Well, this doesn't. Not such a big deal. I mean, a lot of people like to listen to pre-recorded tapes, even if they have Dolby B on them, without the Dolby on. And of course, if you thought that the audio was coming through a little bit thin as a result of not having the Dolby on, you could always stick your mega bass or your groove on, and that would counteract that. So, a minor issue there. It does have the ability to use an inline remote control. However, it does not come with one in the box. At least in the UK it doesn't. I think in some countries it did. And you can use a remote off another Walkman, which I've done in the past. So if you've already got a Walkman with an inline remote, or perhaps you just buy a broken one second hand with the right kind of remote, you can just swap it out and stick it in there. But of course it works without. Just plug your headphones in and use the controls on the device itself. Now, if we just look at where the battery's located in here, now there is a bit of a knack to opening this up. If we just have a look there, you can see it says open there, and you're supposed to pull a thing here which then opens a door. But the trouble is your finger is also kind of closing the door at the same time. So you have to go across it very quickly like that, and that pops the door open, and that's how we get our single AA out. And this, although I don't have the specs for this particular model, in the replacement one I'm going to show you, 1AA will provide around about 35 hours of power for a device like this. So all in all, just a very neat little Walkman. Now this was recommended to me by a friend, a collector of Walkman, and he said, you should get yourself one of these. By the way, it's the WM-EX525. And I thought, yeah, good idea. So I did. He said, don't tell everyone about it. Now, that was about 5 years ago. And I'll be honest, you don't see them so much anymore. I had trouble getting one at the time, and they're pretty rare now. So, look, that is a recommendation that was given to me. I think everyone that wanted one should have got one by now. So I'm just passing it on to you. But I'm actually saying don't get one of these at the moment, because I've got something that I think's going to be better. So let me just show you that. It's this, it's the WM-FX521, and again these aren't easy to get hold of nowadays, but the difference with this one is that it's got an FM AM radio in the same kind of shell. So 40 presets on the radio, mega bass, auto music search, all the rest of it, usual stuff. However, I'm not showing you this one because this one's broken. It took me a while to get hold of one of these. The first one I bought got stolen in the post, and I'm saying stolen, not lost, because someone opened the package, took it out, substituted it for something else, sealed it back up again badly, and then sent it on to me, and I never got to the end of that one. So unfortunately I had a pretty much almost brand new one, very light use, that just got stolen. So this was the next one. It took me many months before I found another one for sale in the UK at a sensible price. I got this one, I said it was working, and yeah, it all works and powers on and everything. Absolutely no sound output from it whatsoever. So this is the problem. We're dealing with old stuff now, and it's not entirely reliable. I mean, we're not dealing with stuff that you can just take back to the shop and swap it for a new one. You're dealing with collectible things. So let me just put that one out of the way, because another long wait got me this. A guy had about 5 of these for sale about 6 months ago, and this one completely sealed, never been opened. I think it was like ex-stock from some sort of Argos shop or something, I'm not too sure where. By the way, the silver colour, not always available in each country. There seem to be different colours for different countries, as well as the fact that some of them might pack in the inline remote in the box. So let's open up a brand new old stock Walkman. Hopefully this one's going to work. And I'll also show you inside that broken one and tell you what went wrong with it in a bit. So let's just have a look at this one. Right, here we go. And I don't really want to rip the box, so let's just get in here carefully. Right, okay, so let's take the insides out and have a good look at what we got. If they'd have just carried on making this model till now, I think people would have been pretty happy with it. But of course, every good thing comes to an end, and now you can't get a decent cassette Walkman. But brilliant condition, of course, brand new. And yeah, there's our 35 hours European colour variation 1AA drive. So let's just open this up. Right, so our battery compartment's taped down. So let's just take that off. Of course, I'm glad I didn't stick a battery in this thing. Let's just see if this one's any easier to open up than my other one. So just, oh, there we go. I think that other one must be a little bit bent or something, because that is really easy. Okay, let's stick a battery in it. Now, there's no guarantee that this is going to work. It's been sitting around for a very long time. In fact, I said it was from 2000. I've got that slightly out. If we just have a look here on the instructions, Sony copyright 2001, so we know it's at least from 2001. Maybe it's a 2002 model or something, but I'd imagine it was discontinued shortly thereafter. Let's turn the radio on. There we go, that's AM, that's FM, and let's try and search for something.
£70,000, and then you have to text to 61054.
Yeah, so the radio's working fine. I've turned the lights down though because they interfere with the reception with this. They do this with every other radio, so I'm used to it. Also, attaching it to this wire that's going to a speaker is not going to get the best reception. You're supposed to use your earbuds, and the wire on here becomes the antenna for the radio. But yeah, the radio's working fine. A little bit tricky getting used to the operation of it, moving it out of the manual mode into the preset mode and vice versa. But yeah, that all works fine. So I think the main event is we want to see if this can play a cassette. So let's stick one in here. Now, I recorded a cassette previously on another device, and we'll just pop this in here. I always get these in the wrong way up when they're like this. There we go. Because of course all the mechanism is in the door there, so you just slide it down like that. Right, now here we go. Let's try and get into the cassette mode. Turn the radio off, and we need to press play. There we go. Yeah, it's sounding pretty good so far. I mean, not perfect, but then again, it has been sat for a long time. I think it needs to be run in a bit, so perhaps if I play through a full tape before playing you a direct feed from it. But I'm happy that it's up and running. It sounds okay, yeah. I think it'll sound better in an hour though, so let me just run it through this tape. While we're doing that, I just want to show you the broken one. Alright, so this is the one that I wasted my money on. Again, it's in good nick. It comes with the earbuds, although they have been used. I wouldn't really want to use some old earbuds. But yeah, pretty decent condition. I can't see any issues with that at all. The problem is somebody left a battery in it and it's leaked. And if we just get this open, if I could do that, it doesn't look bad from here. If I just open the battery compartment there, well, you might better see first off, it's not opening all the way on its own, which is a kind of bad sign. It's obviously catching on something. You might be able to make out a bit of corrosion there at the end of the battery compartment, but it doesn't look too bad. And in fact, if you put a battery in this, it powers on. The thing works up to a point. The problem is there's no sound comes out of it at all. And I'll just open the back up and I'll show you what's gone wrong with it. Now, in opening this up, I'm showing you one of the best features of this particular range of models. It's how easy they are to get inside and change the belts. On this one, we've got a total of, well, let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws, and they come out very easily. They're not hidden anywhere, and the whole thing is not a nightmare to take apart. I've taken apart Walkman models before, and once you get in them you just don't know what to do. There's just so many things crammed in, but by the time they were making these, they'd obviously refined their designs, and because there's a little bit more space perhaps in here, it's a little bit easier to work with these than it is some of the other models when they were really trying to squeeze the size down. So let's just think. There we go. I think we've got everything out there, so let's have a look. Yep, that's it. So that bit just comes straight off there. Easy as that. And just look at this, look how easy it is to swap that belt out. It just goes round there, up over there, and round here, and that's it. It's one belt. And you can see there, if I turn that bit, how the other bits move as well. But look how simple that would be to swap. Now, you can see what happened with that battery, and it's completely like gone onto the circuit board here and created a nice little sort of crystal. Now, since I've got the other one, we might as well just have a bit of a play around with this and see if we could get some sound out of it. I was wondering if I clean all this off, if that's going to help. I think we're going to end up with ruined traces on the circuit board. Now, don't panic. Last time I got this out, so many people wrote to me, don't use WD-40. That's not a contact cleaner. Yes, this is. WD-40 contact cleaner. Don't panic. It's not your normal old-fashioned WD-40. Wow, this stuff is caked on here. You know what? I think I'm going to try the lemon juice again. That's not shifting. Let's just see if this starts to dissolve anything here. Now, of course, afterwards, yes, you've got to clean your lemon juice off because it's going to leave a sticky residue, which is where my contact cleaner and isopropyl alcohol come in. But as you can see here, I think you can see anyway, we're starting to dissolve things now. Yeah, you can see it all fizzing up there. Look at that. I'm wondering what's at the bottom of all this, though. Unfortunately, the leaky battery has made it lose its mind. The radio I can't actually switch on, so I put a cassette in and all it did was auto-reverse back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then it just stopped doing that. I took the cassette out and it's done that to it, so really, yeah, not working is the prognosis on this one. Right, let's get back to the other one again. Yeah, this one's still playing away to itself happily, but before I get to that, just want to mention something, because I'm sure someone will ask what the fate of this is going to be, whether I'm going to throw it away or donate it, whatever it is. No, the answer is I'm keeping this as a spares machine. You see, it's in absolutely mint condition. I mean, I doubt it ever really got much use beyond that first battery that killed it. It looks like nobody's really taken this anywhere, which is a shame, but as a result, all the parts on here are absolutely top condition. So if anything on this one gets damaged, scuffed, broken, bent, well, I'll swap it out with a part from this. So that is being kept in its box, just in case anything happens to the working machine. Just looking through these instructions to see if there was anything worth reporting back on, and the first thing I want to show you is these pictures here. We've got the model with the inline remote shown. Of course, the one in the UK was this over here with just the headphones plugging into it. So that's what your inline remote would look like, a nice, simple, sleek unit. I don't know what countries that would be provided in. If we go down here to the specifications, you can see it mentions it weighs 165 grams. I think that's without the battery in it. And as far as the battery goes, well, for tape playback, 35-hour battery life. Just on the radio, 65 hours. So it's a very efficient little unit. Okay, I've let it play a while and it is still sounding a little bit wobbly on the piano music. And whilst it isn't dreadful, I'm just wondering whether the belt is a little bit worn. I mean, it will have been held in a certain position for 20 years and it might just have a bit of a shape to it which is causing some issues. So I've ordered a new belt. I haven't got it yet, but I think it's worth swapping it over. But I think we'll just have a look inside just to see if there is any need to swap it from just looking at it visually, if it looks at all misshapen. So let's just take this off here. See, again, it comes off really easily. No, it looks okay. I'm not noticing any issues with that, but again, it's hard to tell when it's in place like this, although I don't want to take it off just yet because I want to wait for the replacement to come before I do that, so I remember the correct path of it. But while we've got it open here, let's just press play. There we go. So you can see it's all moving around there. I hope you can see anyway. Okay, so it's all moving nice and smoothly. Let's activate the auto reverse. Just such a nice little mechanism. I mean, they really had perfected it by the time this thing came out. And we'll fast forward. Well, we're doing music search there with a fast forward. Pretty quiet, really. Yeah, nothing wrong with this at all. I say it could probably just benefit from a new belt. It would be more elastic, and being in this shape for 20 years like that, it's going to be a little bit stretched perhaps at certain points, and as those pass by you'll just get a little bit of a wobble on the sound that you wouldn't with a brand new belt. But I'll play you some audio from it, but yeah, bear in mind that I don't think that this belt is doing it any favours at the moment. Oh, by the way, whilst that side is metal, this is just plastic. Not that it matters, but sometimes this plastic does have a tendency to scuff, so you've got to be quite careful with it. It's a shame that they cheaped out on the model that came to the UK and only provided these earbuds rather than the inline remote control, because just looking at the instructions here I can see that the proper inline remote for this lets you turn the radio on and adjust the band, go through the presets, and of course you've got the usual cassette access, fast forward, rewind, volume, and stop, and of course auto reverse. Now as far as those last few goes, well, I've got a remote here that comes from one of the anniversary cassette Walkman, and this does enable you to access the cassette controls. For example, if I press play now, you'll see that it shows on the screen there, and I'll fast forward. So all that's working fine, but that's pretty much all it can do, other than of course adjust the volume level on here. I can't turn the radio on and off, and also you can see there that the information isn't coming through to the display on here. I've got a menu button there which doesn't do anything with this particular model. Of course with the right one it would access a menu enabling us to go through the Megabase and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it'd be nice to get the proper remote, but they didn't provide it, and after all these years it's going to be very difficult to find that particular model. Now, just before I give you an audio demo with this, I've noticed one other feature that's missing from this one compared to the model without the radio. This has that groove on it, which is the sort of advanced Megabase in a way, whereas this one just has standard old Megabase. Now, the way you access these, it's a little bit odd. You've got this menu button here, and I don't know if you can see on the display, there's a black line that moves around the outside. It's very difficult to capture this on camera. It isn't the best interface, but the idea is you've got MB written there on the edge, and you can see the black dot I've got next to it. That's because I've switched it on. So I'll turn this off, so I'll do set. So that's with the out the Megabase on, that's with. Next one up is the automatic volume limiter system, so I can turn that on as well. And then next is the blank skip, and I can also turn that on. So I'm going to start it without the Megabase on and without the automatic volume, and we'll just have a listen to the audio normally, and then I'll switch the Megabase on and you'll see the black dot appear in the display when I do that. Yeah, not sounding too good this. Let's give it a go with the wow and flutter meter and see exactly what we're looking at. Yeah, not great. Okay, well, we'll just start off on the speed on the left. I've set it to 3%, so it's the bottom scale, and therefore it's running just under 2% fast. It's pretty inaccurate. Over here on the flutter, well, that's jumping about. I'll just put it into the slow mode, which just dampens the whole thing down so I can get a kind of more general reading. We're looking at the top row, so we're looking at like 0.3% wow and flutter. That's let's get up to 0.4 there. It's rubbish. Yeah, when it gets into a range like this, it's really noticeable. Right, let's just try another machine. Right, so we're looking at the EX525 now, the other battery-powered model, the one without the radio, and the results here, well, they're better, but they're not good. I say better, the speed isn't better. That's 2% fast still, so that's no good. Moving across to the wow and flutter, we're more like 0.2 or just over there. And I've got to think that the only reason I haven't noticed this so far is I haven't used this an awful lot, and also, while I've been listening to the music on it, I've been out and about, I haven't really been paying too much attention to it, and the kind of music I've been listening to isn't the kind where you'd really notice there being a lot of problems, like you would if you were listening to piano-based music, where wow and flutter, speed irregularities are really quite noticeable. So yeah, a bit better on this one, but that's still not great, is it? I'll be looking forward to that belt coming, and we'll see if we can improve the other machine, and if it works, then I'll swap the belt out in this one as well. Let's just get one of the other machines and just see what that looks like. Yeah, so this is one of the 20th anniversary models. This particular one is the EX672 that I rudely dismissed at the beginning due to its plastic chin. Perhaps I shouldn't have been as harsh on it, because now when I take a look at this, it's better than the other one. Speed, well, it's just under 1% fast. I'll see if we can narrow that down. So we'll see where that stops, that needle. Yeah, sort of 0.6, 0.7% fast or something like that. It's still going up a little bit. But over here on the flutter, you can see it's settled down to around about 0.2%. If I put 0.3 at the top of the scale there at the bottom, yeah, so it's sort of 0.25%, give or take, going up to perhaps 0.3. It's weird, this thing. If you go to 1%, definitely looks like it's 0.2. But anyway, yeah, slightly better than the other one, but it's obviously a better machine. However, this isn't the one we came here to see. But truthfully, if you got one of these, you're probably getting a better result than you are with one of the ones that I've come to show you today. Anyway, moving on. Now, I'm still waiting for the replacement belt, which I hope is going to improve the wow and flutter. That will be arriving, I hope, sometime today. But in the meantime, it might be a good idea if I just put a cassette single in here, set it to continuous play in a loop, and then if I just have it play for the next 10 hours or so, it's either going to kill it or improve it in some way. So this is a 10-minute tape. It'll go one way, then the other way, then back, and just continuously. And that might just smooth things out a little bit. I'm hoping so anyway. So, right, it's off and running now. I'm just going to pop it to one side, and hopefully sometime later today the postman's going to deliver the belt I need. I just thought I'd take a quick look at the specifications to see if there was any mention of the wow and flutter tolerances in here. Nothing. So it seems like this is not a unit that was ever really designed to provide the highest of performance, but I'd imagine it's supposed to be better than it is at the moment, so let's hope we can improve it. Right, unfortunately the post hasn't turned up today, so I've just left this thing running for about 6 hours. I've now swapped in the test tape and it's getting the same results as before, so running it in has not helped anything at all. The only thing that could potentially help will be that replacement belt when I do finally get it, although at this stage I'm thinking it's unlikely it's going to make any improvement. But of course we'll find out, just going to wait for it now. Finally, the belt's arrived. Not really this company's fault. There was a weekend and there was a bank holiday, but at least it's here. It's the model for this specific Walkman, so it should fit. Let's find out. Right, so I just want to make sure I've got the path right. So we'll start on the motor. It goes around that one, over that one, across the bottom and around that one. Well, that's easy enough, isn't it? Let's just take that off. As you can see, it is kind of a bit misshapen. Perhaps lost some of its elasticity, but it's not in bad shape really. Anyway, let's swap it out. Right, well that's on. Of course it's twisted around at the moment, but it just requires a bit of movement and it will straighten itself out. And it does fit. It's the right thickness. That's the important thing with Walkman belts. They're a little bit thinner than any normal over-the-counter belt that you might get in an assorted set. Let's put the cover back on and see if it's improved our stats at all. Okay, well this is a little bit of a surprise. It has actually made quite a significant difference. Looking at the left dial to start with, that's the speed again, and we're looking at just under 1% slow now, if I just put it into the 1% scale. So we're looking at the top row on here now. So yeah, it's like 0.7% slow or something like that, which is going to change over the course of the tape. So let's just move across to the flutter side here. And we're hanging around 0.2% now. So that's quite an improvement. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's an improvement. Wonder if it sounds any better. Let's just have another listen to that piano music. Now we've seen how easy it is to open this up and swap the belt. It takes just a couple of minutes. I wonder if it's any more difficult in this one. Yeah, I'm struggling. I would have thought this would have just popped off the same as on the other one, but I've taken all the screws out from this side and something is holding it in place. And I'm reluctant to pull on it too hard because I don't want to break it, because this is a precious item. So since I don't have to go in it, I'm not going to try it anymore. But yeah, if you've got one of those, it looks a little bit trickier to get into it than it does in one of those. Right, so let's try and sum this up. First off, these two models, very similar type devices as far as the way they look. Anyway, the WM-EX525 and the WM-FX521, one with a radio, one without, but they both run off that single internal AA battery. Right, the pros for these. Easy to swap the belt on. You can do it in just a couple of minutes. They run off that one AA battery. That's a great pro. No messing around with chargers, external gumstick things, all the rest of it. And they run for ages off that battery. The con, though, really mediocre performance. Surprisingly mediocre. You see, I was coming into this video thinking I was going to tell you about this Walkman that was a bit of a hidden gem. And if you ever see one and you're looking for a cassette Walkman, then maybe that's one to hunt out over some other models. Now, I probably wouldn't say it was. They're all right. Barely. But really, that wow and flutter number is a little bit too high. Although, as we saw, by swapping the belt out, we have improved that. Now, I don't normally go into wow and flutter measurements on older devices. Whenever I've shown some sort of cassette player or whatever in a video from like the 70s, occasionally I'll get people saying, why didn't you do a wow and flutter test on it and show us how good it was? Well, with old stuff, it is as good as it is, if you know what I mean. If something's had a hard life, it'll be pretty bad. If it's been treated excellently and it's had a recent service and it's perfectly maintained, it'll be better. But me doing a test on whichever one I pick up is not telling the viewer anything, it's telling them what my thing's like. But if they went and got one, their results would be different. Now, it's different if I went to go and buy a new cassette player from a supermarket, whatever was on sale there, and I hooked it up to this machine just to show you how bad they are, and that would be what I'd be showing, how bad they were, not how good they were. And you'd therefore know, oh, that's pretty poor. If I went and got one of those, I'd get the same result. But with old stuff, it's hit and miss. Mine might be knackered, yours might be great, or vice versa. So normally not worth doing that test. This time, though, I thought it was, because this has been sat in the box since it was new. So it hasn't got worn out. Now, there is the other side of things. Have the components aged to a state where they're not performing as well as they would have done when it was new? I can't answer that. I don't know. I'd have to get a time machine and go back to the early 2000s and test one of these brand new just to see what these stats should have shown. But I can tell you now, after these years, if you went and bought one, I think the best one you'd ever find would be like this, brand new in box. And the results you'd get would be, I'd imagine, pretty similar to mine, which were underwhelming to say the least. Rather wobbly on the wow and flutter. However, if you're going out and about with a cassette in your Walkman, like anyone does that anymore, but let's just pretend somebody's got a cassette Walkman there sitting on a bus or a train, you probably wouldn't notice though that wow and flutter. I mean, you might do if you were listening to piano music, but if you're just listening to rock or pop or whatever, and there's all these other noises around you, you'd probably be just quite happy listening to your music. You wouldn't be trying to pick it apart. It's one reason why I never understand these super high-res audio players that cost thousands of pounds and they're supposed to be portable. I mean, if you ever go anywhere, there's so much noise and annoyance that you're not really hitting all those nuances on those things. I think things like that maybe would be better for your house in a nice quiet environment with everything just perfect. But anyway, sidetracking here. So yeah, performance not good. Also interesting seeing the reduction in cost that's gone on here. So this one lost the full metal case from the previous model and also lost the groove sound mode. Couple of weird omissions, just to cut costs a little bit, I'd imagine. So the previous one, well, I say the one without the radio anyway, this model, the EX525, this lost the Dolby that was on that one, and it also lost the inline remote control that was in the box, and it also lost the sound revitalizer. I think that's what it's called. Let me just tell you about these little sound things, actually. So this is the instruction booklet for the 20th anniversary one, and it mentions these different modes. So we've got RV, which is a sound revitalizer that emphasises treble sound, MB, mega bass, emphasises bass sound, and Groove, GRV, which emphasises the deeper bass sound. So yeah, that one, without the radio, had the groove, and that one had the revitalizer and the groove and the Dolby and the inline remote. But I think what's happened here is by the time this one came out, they really were having to try and cut costs a little bit. We're in the early 2000s here. You're trying to sell a cassette Walkman to people. Nobody really wants to buy a very expensive one. I mean, it might seem crazy now, but if you were going into a shop and this thing cost another 20, 30 pounds or dollars more because it's got a metal case and Dolby and all that kind of stuff, and an inline remote control, might cost another £50 more or whatever. People go, no, I'll just get the CD Walkman, or I'll get a mini disc or whatever. There were other alternatives out there. It was the end of the line for the cassette. So what Sony have done here, they've been cutting costs bit by bit until they get to this one. And as a result, the performance, never mind the plastic case and that, which I can live with, but the performance of this seems to be quite a step down from the 20th anniversary editions. And bear in mind, 20th anniversary, when was that? Well, 1979, the first one comes out, so 1999. So 1999, you've still got some pretty decent machines on the market with a 20th anniversary sticker on them. And then it seems to sort of tail off into the early 2000s and the quality seems to be slipping. But that said, either of these models are, well, scientifically, I'd say roughly 100 times better than any portable personal stereo cassette player that you could buy nowadays and you'll ever be able to buy in the future. So I'm not dissing these as being, old rap lingo, as being rubbish. I'm not saying they're rubbish. I'm just saying that really, if you were going out getting a cassette Walkman now, that maybe you'd be quite happy with one of these, but I think you'd probably be happier with something like that. And of course, there's plenty of other models on the market, but I particularly like this range for the nice, neat, thin cases. And I'll just make do with the fact that I have to stick a battery in the bottom of this every now and again. But one thing making this video has got me doing is checking my other machines just to see what the wow and flutter was like on that. So my WMD6C, the one that I said was a lot better, well, it is still a lot better, but the wow and flutter on these models, the things here was around about 0.3, 0.4%, which was a bit ropey. This is around about 0.07. Now that's not great for this. It should be better. I think maybe something in here might need looking at. But 0.07, because then I checked out a TCD5. I've got a new TCD5M, by the way. This one got a result of 0.04. So we're dealing with like 10 times better wow and flutter between that and one of these things. That said though, swapping that belt out did improve this, and it just shows you, if we've learned anything from this video, that perhaps swapping the belt in your Walkman can elicit some quite impressive improvements. That's just as long as you actually know how to get inside your Walkman. But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.